Welcome to Let Me Catch You Up, the podcast where I explain reality TV to my husband.
And I ask a lot of questions.
I'm Liz, a longtime Bravo watcher who's been following Summer House for years.
And I'm Pat, a casual observer who's been in the room, sometimes paying attention.
Each week, we're recapping the latest episode of Summer House, breaking down the drama, the relationships, and everything you might have missed. Whether you've watched every episode,
or you're just trying to keep up.
We're here to catch you up. Let's get into it. All right, it's that time of the week. We are back to talk about Summer House Season 10, Episode 7, called Makeups and Makeouts. So before diving in, my social media update for the week, just a couple quick things. Kyle was on Watch What Happens Live after last week's episode. There wasn't too much of interest, but people agreed that Kyle should have invested in Soft Bar.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some funny moments, but nothing too much of interest otherwise from the episode. Except when Andy asked Kyle if him and Amanda would be fighting all through the city. And Kyle started answering like he just meant like New York City, but Andy was talking about their show, the city that they're going to be on.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I mean, we run into each other every once in a while.
Yeah. So I think the city will air in September. Can't wait. We'll have more Kyle and Amanda on our TV. Jesse launched his tour. So good for Jesse. And that's all I'll say.
Yep. Wish him the best of luck.
Dara was on a podcast called Virtual Reality. I don't know exactly what, but when she was asked about KJ, she said, KJ is a man written by a woman. Like, kind of saying, like, he's kind of like the perfect guy from a, like, not even perfect guy, but just saying he has really high emotional intelligence. And I don't know, that quote was going around and it's a pretty good quote. Yeah. But KJ seems like a great guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so did you have any social media updates for the week?
I will say, so I don't follow any of these accounts or anything on Instagram, but you've forwarded me a couple things, so now it's like all over my algorithm. So yeah, some stuff has been popping up. I don't remember anything too much. I know there was like a dance video or whatever, but I don't know if that was from a week prior. Oh, and then I saw Earl was on West's podcast.
That was a little old.
Okay. Yeah, I'm probably getting old stuff, so don't mind me.
It's okay. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, let's dive in to the recap. So we pick up on Saturday, July 26th at 8:24 p.m. So as a reminder, they had spent the afternoon at a winery, and then they had come home and played a couple games and stuff. So now they're going to do Truth or Dare, spin the bottle. And I mean, I think it's pretty apparent Wes seems kind of drunk, even from like the beginning of this. And Ben sits next to Bailey and she's like, oh, why of all the people does he have to sit next to me? And then Amanda starts explaining the rules, and then she starts to say what the coupled up people will do. And Ben's like, whoa, there's no different rules for different people. And Jesse's like, oh, Ben wants to kiss the married people again.
He just keeps digging his hole deeper. I don't think anybody other than Bailey seems to mind.
Yeah. I did hear a couple of different takes on the Ben and Bailey situation last week, listening to other podcasts, and some people kind of had a similar take to us. Some people were saying, oh, Ben seemed like he way overreacted, and if Jesse had made that joke, everybody would have just laughed, and it wasn't fair. I think some people will say, okay, well, this just proves that if Jesse makes the joke, everyone laughs. I also think the context was super different.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a little bit of truth to that too.
Could be. Maybe Bailey's not that far off base with some of this stuff.
Yeah. It wasn't the time for that joke.
Agreed. Yeah.
Last week.
Right. I think that was the main point. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they start playing. There's a couple, like, Amanda kisses KJ on the cheek. Kyle kisses Jesse. Then it's Ben's turn, and he lands on Bailey and gets full makeout. Yeah. He goes in for it, and they're both good sports about it. Everybody's just like screaming and reacting. And in their confessionals, Ben's like, well, I don't like her sense of humor, but she's a good kisser. And Bailey's like, whoa, that was a good kiss. Yeah. And Mia says the house is healed.
Yeah, I like that they didn't shy away from it. They went after it. but it was also, they both knew it was kind of like just for fun.
Yeah. Bailey and Ciara get a makeout, and then Ben gets a dare, which maybe there were other dares, but it looked like this is the only dare the whole game.
Yeah.
And they dare him to jump naked in the pool. So he does. He really commits to it, impressively so. Like, he kind of just runs and then dives in the pool really quick. It's Jesse's turn, and Levi and Jesse make out. It seemed like a good kiss, but I was so distracted the whole time. It seemed like Levi was so short she couldn't even reach Jesse.
Yeah, the height differential seemed extreme. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, sit down or something.
But yeah, they went after it also.
Yeah. Which, I think Jesse was like, oh, it was a good kiss, but I guess they're not interested in dating each other.
Right.
And then we start to notice, like, West is kind of inching closer towards, or first he's like hitting her with his foot, then he's moving his chair closer, he's like touching her back, holding on to her. Ciara says, what are you holding on to? And they kind of intercut Amanda and Jesse watching, and they show Jesse laughing, and I don't know if he was actually laughing at West, and then they show West be like, ha 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 ha, bitch, I will fuck you up, and he's just like clearly drunk and not making any sense. Yeah. They show Ciara in a confessional saying they do miss each other probably. They're probably still attracted to each other, but they're in this weird state and everything's kind of just coming out disorganized and a little crazy. But, I mean, it just seemed like he was pretty drunk, but nothing much else came from that.
Yeah. Just drunk and kind of flirtatious, but it's kind of like, he joked about the nighttime crush or whatever and stuff like that, but it seems like it's basically just like when they're kind of drinking, he kind of lets his guard down and the flirting comes out a little bit more. Yeah.
So Mia gets a truth and she's asked, does size matter? And she's like, well, it's also knowing what to do. And then Kyle, it's his turn and it lands on Amanda and he's like so excited that he makes out with Amanda, which was kind of sad and cute. But then she's like, you smell like cheese. And then I don't know how much longer it is, but he starts to say, I'm getting aroused. And he like holds a pillow in front of him and he runs away and breaks a glass. Ciara's like, does he have a boner? That was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was funny and like you said, kind of sad at the same time. He was like, oh, I haven't like passionately kissed my wife in forever.
Right.
But then the fact that he gets a boner and runs away was icing on the cake.
Yeah. So the game just kind of ends. Well, first they try to get Wes and Ciara to make out by pretending that like it landed on them, but they don't fall for it. The game ends. Then we see Bailey and Ben make up, and he is like, I didn't feel good about yesterday. And he's like, it's, better to let it go. And he apologizes to Bailey, and she accepts his apology. They hug it out, and Bailey is like, my crush is over, but we're friends. We're good. So I'm glad that they at least kind of squashed that.
Yeah, same.
And then they go to bed. They show West as the last one in the living room where they were playing Spin the Bottle and he has hiccups. And then it's the next morning. And West says, I'm getting more hungover by the second. Then they show Amanda in Kyle's room. Amanda's like, I'm going to go shower. And Kyle's like, oh, I'll shower with you. And she's like, no, I don't want to shower with you. I'm assuming he wanted to have sex.
Right. Yeah, he looked so sad.
So, yeah.
It's just continuation of the vibes are off and they're clearly just not in a good place. I'm not going to play therapist or whatever, but it's like he thinks that like physical chemistry and stuff is going to like fix all the other stuff going on or whatever. And I think Amanda is like, we're way past that. So,
yeah. And I think this is where I felt like the simmering undertones and tension were building all episode with Kyle and Amanda. Like, I felt like that's kind of what this is when it started a little. And I felt like nothing blew up or anything, but there was just a lot of like moments highlighted of tension or Amanda kind of making comments or just taking a tone with Kyle.
Yeah, for sure.
So we see Wes, Ben, Kyle kind of all meeting on the couch, and then Jesse kind of walks in and they're like debriefing from the night before, and Wes is like, I don't remember anything. And Jesse's like, oh, how's everyone doing or something? And Ben says, fresh out of the wrapper. And I was like, what is that like an Australian saying? So I looked it up. It just means like he's sarcastically saying like, I'm doing great, brand new. Like,
is it an Australian thing though?
I don't know that it's Australian, but
yeah, I've never heard it before.
Yeah. Wes says the last thing he remembers the bottle, but he doesn't remember any of the people. And Jesse tells him he was grabbing Ciara's leg the whole time and he's embarrassed.
Yeah.
And, then in his confessional, he's like, well, there's always something there, but I don't truly know anything because I haven't had a real conversation with her. And so he's like, maybe it's something, but I don't know. And then Amanda and Ciara are debriefing at the same time in bed. And Amanda was like, oh, he was like all over you. And she's like, Ciara's like, yeah, he's been overly flirty with me this weekend. And Amanda says, well, maybe you've been too nice to him. And Ciara's kind of like, yeah. So then they all pack up. It's 11:31 on Sunday. And Ben's neck pillow is back.
Nice.
Did you see that?
I didn't notice that. It's observant.
So I guess that's his shtick. And then they show the city. On Monday, Bailey calls Carl. There's like this whole scene. Bailey looks really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And she calls Carl to ask him to grab coffee later in the week. But I was just kind of like, that was kind of weird. They just showed her on the phone. And then they didn't even show the scene of them meeting, like, except for a little bit of flashbacks.
Yeah, they showed it after the fact. But did you notice also, like, so when she was squashing the beef with Ben and everything, and then she was in her confessional, she was kind of saying, like, my crush is over. I just want somebody who's sweet and nice. And then when she calls Carl, I was like, oh, like she's basically like in her head being like, I'm moving on from Ben to Carl. And she was kind of setting up the groundwork for like, this is why I'm interested in Carl. After she got off the phone, she was like, he's so sweet.
Yeah, good point. So after the phone call, then it's Wednesday, and they show KJ and Dara meeting up at a boxing gym, and I thought they were pretty cute together. Yeah. They have a little bit of banter, and KJ shows her how to box. We learn a little bit more about Dara, that she was raised in Boston and liked punching kids in school, so her mom got her a punching bag.
That's great.
But KJ invites Dara to come to the house that weekend and sleep over. You should come to the party and bring some pajamas. And she's like, is that your way of asking me to sleep over? He's like, yeah.
Smooth.
And then I guess it's Thursday and we get an update with Amanda and Kyle in their apartment. And I don't know if you noticed, but when the scene starts, they show a framed photo of Kyle and Amanda in their apartment. And next to it is this little like box of matches or something that says, a perfect match. I thought that was a little shady. But the scene opens with Amanda holding their dog Reese. He's eating out of a pouch, which was cool. I was like, is that
I've seen
a
these.
baby food?
No, I've seen these. They're like it's like a dog food pouch thing or whatever.
Oh.
Yeah, I've looked into it. There's so many dog foods out there that are like unnecessary and overpriced or whatever, but I've definitely come across them.
Good to know. So Kyle starts off the conversation saying he feels like a zombie. He's having trouble sleeping. He'll fall asleep but then wake up like an hour later and he won't be able to fall back asleep because he's so stressed out. And Amanda says, well, do you need to change or cut back on anything? Is there something you're doing that's like causing you more stress? Would you feel better if you change something? And Kyle's like what? Like, what could I possibly change about my lifestyle that would make it less stressful? And Amanda's like, maybe some of the new careers you've taken on. Kyle says DJing brings him the most joy out of everything right now, and it also helps connect the dots with Loverboy. Amanda says, I know the traveling's a lot, though. And Kyle's like, well, there isn't a great place to pump the brakes, and he's close to signing with a manager. And Amanda kind of is like, oh, I didn't realize that. And he's like saying this manager will help him book better gigs that pay more. And then Amanda says, how long are we going to do this DJ thing for?
I think that was my favorite part when Kyle was like, you really seem to be dwelling on the DJ thing.
She's like looking around like, am I crazy? Yeah. Then Kyle's like, you should be dwelling on all the stress from Loverboy. And then Amanda's like, but we don't ever talk about the DJing thing. We've talked about Loverboy for years. I know it stresses you out, but just wondering what your plan is for DJing. I'm not really roped into it. I didn't marry a DJ. All of a sudden, I'm now the wife of one. And Kyle kind of makes a face like he can't believe she's saying that. And she's like, so you're just in nightlife now? And he's like, well, I'm not like buying a bar. And Kyle in his confessional, he's like, not only am I making money during a time that I'm not paying myself a salary at Loverboy, I'm making money, but also getting Loverboy into venues that normally charge. Why doesn't Amanda see it from my perspective? I mean, does Kyle see it from Amanda's perspective? Like, he was already working a lot, and that was already like a point of contention in previous seasons with them. And now he's taken on an additional career where he has to travel a lot and not be home on weekends.
Yeah, he's created all these situations himself. Like he's created a career, two careers that revolve around alcohol and late nights and partying. But now he's like, but it's my career. I want to. I'm all I'm doing is taking my career seriously. Like that's a responsible thing to do. And I have employees that depend on me and stuff like that. But you've set up these careers this way, and I don't think there was ever any buy-in from Amanda. It's kind of like, what am I supposed to do now? Say like quit your job? It puts her in a tough spot.
Yeah. Yeah. And she kind of says that. She's like, where do I fit in and where does life fit in?
Yeah.
I want to make sure you're taking us into consideration. And Kyle's like, well, if the alternative is to just stay in during the weekend in our apartment, like kind of going down a path that he's like, how is that better than making money as a DJ?
Mm-hmm.
And Amanda's like, it's not the alternative. We could be doing things together. You just have to be around. And he doesn't say anything to that. And then she's like, but since you're signing with the manager, I'll just figure it out. And that's where the conversation ends. I really would have liked to see Kyle at least say something about what he's thinking as far as their relationship versus just him focused on his career aspirations, because it just seemed odd to me that I guess for him, he's one of those people that just lives to work, and Amanda wants to work to live and actually like enjoy life outside of work. So.
Yeah. And I think, again, like, it's not that either one of them is wrong. They're not compatible. Like, there's tons of DJs in the world, but if your partner is not supportive of it, then you're choosing. Like, it's a decision, your relationship or this career.
Yeah. And I mean, he's also like, he's working full time, but probably way more than 40 hours a week running a startup, and then adding on to it the DJ thing now. Does he want a relationship? It's like, when does he have time to spend with it?
Yeah.
I think Amanda's point, you don't have time to spend with me. So like, how are you thinking I fit into this life?
Yeah. He wants to have like a supportive wife that's there the 4 hours a week that he sees her, and wants her to be like romantically all over him in those 4 hours that he's around her. It's a little bit unrealistic.
True. Yeah. So then we move on to Friday. They're heading back to the Hamptons. We start with Carl, West, and KJ in a car together. And West is like, oh, I heard Bailey and you went on a date, Carl. And they flash back a little bit, talking about how they went to lunch. He was like, I didn't immediately clock Bailey in that way, but he's been vibing with her over the last month and has a little bit of a crush. So they just kind of debrief from that. But also we learned Bailey isn't going to be able to make it this weekend. We get an update from Amanda and Mia's car. Mia and Ciara went to Miami during the week for Mia's boyfriend's restaurant opening. And she's like, oh, I'm really proud of him, even though it's been hard with the long distance. And Amanda's like, you can be frustrated and proud.
Yeah.
I'm like, Amanda knows that well. And then we learn it's Kyle's birthday weekend. He's turning 43. And Amanda's like, yeah, he's 9 years older. Mia and Amanda talk a little bit about how things are going. And Amanda's like, yeah, it's still hit or miss, but she'll put on a happy face for his birthday. And then it's 3:13 p.m. Ben and Kyle arrive first at the summer house. And this kind of kicks off a very long intro montage of like everybody arriving to the summer house separately. Because like a lot more people came alone, I feel like, this weekend than others. I don't know. I just felt like it was like going on forever. One little note, when Lindsay arrives.
I know what you're going to say.
And she gets up.
I saw this too.
She's like, have a good weekend. 5 stars. Hope you'll do the same for me. I was like, are we supposed to be telling our Uber drivers to give us a 5-star rating?
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, first of all, it almost came across like, I mean, they didn't show the driver, so I have no idea if it was a man or a woman or whatever, but like it almost came across like flirtatious.
I mean, yeah, that is what Lindsay would do. Yeah, so everybody's kind of just coming in, greeting each other. Lindsay gives Jesse a hard time immediately. She's like, when Jesse comes in, she's like, if I want to make out with someone, I'll be sure to ask you later.
Yeah.
Amanda and Mia get there. Kyle's like, oh, how was your ride out? And Amanda's like, great. Like, Amanda, like, you just asked how your ride was. Yeah, Carl, West, and Katie then arrive. West is excited about his new pool hoop.
Yep.
We learned that KJ saw Dara over the week and that he invited her. The girls are excited about that. Then there's a little bit of an awkward exchange between Lindsay and Carl. She's like, oh, did you get a new haircut? And Carl's like, oh, I just didn't put any gel in my hair. And he's like, did you get a haircut? And Lindsay's like, no, recently.
Yeah, she was being kind of mean. It was funny because like last time that he was like making a big deal about like, oh, like she wasn't mean to me, like we were actually kind of cordial. It wasn't like that drastic or anything, but she was definitely like throwing like little insults.
Yeah. Ciara then gets there, and when Lindsay hugs Ciara, she like lifts her up and her butt hangs out.
Hmm.
Random but funny. KJ and Carl then have a heart to heart, and Carl's a little bit frustrated by kind of, he's like, oh, some of the times the energy I get from Lindsay's not really like great, not kind of unfair, I think, at this point, because he's like, I'm just trying to keep it positive and move on. And they flash back showing where when Carl and Bailey got coffee, she's like, oh yeah, I talked to Lindsay about you. And he's like, oh, what did Lindsay say? And she's like, well, she gave me kind of like two thumbs down, but she said go for you.
Yeah.
So Carl's a little bit like, kind of what the heck. Uh, and then Carl and KJ have a good little bit of like a chat on, sometimes we fixate on things and then we let it affect our moods, but we're going to have a good weekend. So they're kind of like trying to keep it positive.
Hmm.
Then we see Lindsay, Amanda, Ciara, and Mia catch up and they talk. Lindsay brings up, oh, I heard, West was flirting with you and rubbing your back. And Mia says, well, my theory is that West is in love with you. And Ciara's like, oh, wow, okay. And Amanda's like, well, I feel like if there was going to be a change of anything, there would have to be a lot more work on West's end. He would have to profess his love and all of the things he needs to change. And Ciara's like, well, even if he was in love with me, he would never say it. He never says what he feels, especially not in this house. And Lindsay's like, well, would you ever give him another shot? Because I would never, ever, ever, ever give Carl another shot. And Ciara's like, okay, well, if you put it like that, I guess it's not never, ever. So I think there's a slight crack in Ciara's armor.
Right.
Then they show it's, 5:39 p.m. Everybody starts getting ready for dinner. I guess they're going to go out to dinner for Kyle's birthday. West and Ciara see each other, and then West is like, do I need to apologize for last weekend? And kind of the drunk back rub. Was it cringe? I don't know if it was cringe. And he's just kind of like, that's the worst feeling.
Hmm.
Then everybody's getting dressed, and Kyle says to Amanda, Amanda, am I going to be hot like in this outfit? And Amanda says, I don't know. I'm not you.
And then she turns to Ben and she's like, oh, that outfit looks amazing.
Amanda's like, wow, Ben, that is a nice outfit. You've never looked more Australian. Yeah.
Which is just further cementing the whole Amanda is nicer to Ben conspiracy theory. Yeah.
And I was also like, oh, what does looking Australian mean? I Googled Australian men's fashion, and the first clothing item that popped up was a shirt from Quince that looked very similar to the shirt Ben was wearing. So I was like, okay.
I thought you were going to say it was just like a picture of Ben as a model.
Yeah. Also, I noticed, I'm pretty sure the shirt he was wearing is the same shirt he had on in his cast bio picture randomly. Yeah, so they go out to dinner. It looks like Japanese. They all order miso soup. And Kyle's like to Amanda, do you want to sit here? Like next to him? And she's like, sure, if I have to. And they show, okay, so Kyle is wearing like this little silk scarf. And it's like, you added a scarf after you were worried you were going to be hot?
I couldn't tell if that was like a joke or something. I don't know.
Well,
it was so random.
That, I think it's last season, West had a look where he was wearing kind of a scarf like that. So maybe it was something he borrowed from West or was emulating.
Got it.
But Lindsay asks Carl about the Bailey hangout. And Carl's like, well, it wasn't a date, but it felt kind of like a date. And Carl kind of says, well, Bailey told me you and her talked and that you kind of like said some bad stuff. And Lindsay's like, well, she was paraphrasing. And so they're like, okay, so what did you say? And Lindsay's like, I just said go for Carl. He's a great conversationalist, but he probably won't have sex with you. And Carl's like, in his confessional, we weren't sleeping together because of how,
toxic,
rocky things were in their relationship.
Right. Which is kind of mirroring the whole Kyle and Amanda situation too, I guess. But
maybe, yeah. And Carl's like, I used to get destroyed for sleeping around. Now I'm getting dragged for being more careful. I can't win. I think it's just Lindsay. Like, I think everybody else is not giving him too hard of a time, hopefully. Kyle asks Amanda if he can have a sip of her martini, and she's like, depends on how nice you are to me this weekend.
he just looks so sad. He's like, I've been nice.
Yeah. We get a quick cult mention from Carl. He's like, I invited KJ to a running thing this week. Of course you did, Carl. But he says Dara was there, which then kind of kicks off this whole conversation, asking KJ about him and Dara and what he likes. KJ's like, well, she's really emotionally intelligent, and we kind of connect on that. And Kyle's like, well, how did it escalate so quickly? And KJ's like, we just kind of like vibe checked. Kyle's like, kids these days, the old vibe check.
Vibe check, yeah.
And he comes off so old. And He also has like a piece of seaweed in between his teeth. That was great. So then Amanda is like, "Oh, Jesse, do you have any advice for KJ?" Because of Jesse's experience, I think, with Lexi last summer. And, take it slow. Don't use anybody as collateral. Don't use Ciara as collateral. Because that's kind of what Jesse did last season. And then Amanda's like, "Yeah, also don't talk to the press. Wes can fill you in on that." So then we kind of flash back to when Ciara was like, "It's really embarrassing that you published an article that you don't like me anymore instead of just telling me." So then West apologizes to Ciara. He's like, I empathized a lot with how our relationship ended, and I did a lot of interviews. I don't think I knew any better, but it is gross to talk about the relationship publicly. And I don't think I really grasped that until Lexi was doing the same thing to Jesse. And Ciara's like, I appreciate it, but it sucks that you had to watch someone else go through it to even like realize the error of your ways. And then we dive into like a really kind of serious and powerful conversation on race and the different experiences that the Black cast members have on this show compared to their white castmates. And Ciara talks about how she doesn't think they even really realize all of the interracial aspects that exist between, like, for her, dating white guys on TV. And she was the first Black person in the house, and she's been dating white guys publicly, and it's just like really complicated, and she faces a lot of backlash for that, and unfair, racist probably backlash, as well as difficult racial dynamics. West apologizes, and he talks about how he didn't really realize that at the time, and if he knew what he knew now, he would have acted a lot different, and he apologizes. We see Ciara's confessional talking about how hard it is, and it's just kind of like a headache, and she's emotional about like being upset and worried about how, like, when this even airs, how, what kind of impact and backlash she might face. And then KJ talks about how he sees his sisters go through similar things. It's really tough. May seem like, she's complaining, but it's just the reality. He's like, "I always have to be thinking 20 steps ahead. It's not normal. I don't expect everybody to understand if you're not in our skin." But, KJ's like, him coming into the house, being the first Black guy, he feels all this added pressure too. And he's been in his head. He doesn't want to screw it up. Mia then jumps in and talks about, this is just what we're taught as Black people. She knows that KJ got the same talk her brother got. That happens in every Black household, how they have to conduct themselves in a certain manner so they're not seen as a threat or angry or scary. And, there's all these connotations society puts on them, even though there's nothing angry or scary about them. But that's what they're fighting against. So, yeah, that was a lot. But, like, I thought it was really powerful to see that conversation, and important to recognize, reality of their experiences and the different challenges and pressures that as Black people and Black people on a reality show that they face, which is different than what their white cast members face and deal with.
Yeah, that was super emotional scene and everything. I didn't expect that, because it was kind of, lighthearted going into it, and then it got really serious. But I thought that was really good that Ciara kind of got all that off her chest, and that she had the support of KJ and Mia. I think West handled it well also. But that was a tough scene. I was like tearing up a little bit when I saw Ciara, and then especially when KJ like chimed in and stuff, and he started crying, and like everybody was crying.
Yeah. But so they kind of just talk about how the rest of the cast wants to be there to support KJ, Ciara, and Mia, and they want to be a family and support one another. Ciara is like, "KJ, you make me cry. You're my my little brother," and she kind of is like, "I just want to kind of like squeeze you," which was really cute. But then we transition to a lighter conversation. Amanda jokes, "Let's go around the table and everyone say something nice about me." And Wes is like, "You want to F Ben?" And Lindsay's like, "Me too."
I cringed for a second because I was like, "Oh man, Bailey's gonna get mad." And I was like, "Oh, that's right, Bailey's not there, so go for it."
Yeah. But then they quickly transition into a mid-season trailer, which was like chock full of things
That was great,
to talk about. It looks like there's a winter or ski theme party. So we saw a couple scenes from that. We see two people making out. I couldn't figure out who it was. I don't think it's Ciara, because she had like a different outfit on and like a flash of the scene right before that. So
I saw you pausing, like trying to like sleuth it out, but
yeah,
it was too hard to see.
Yeah. They're on a boat at some point. Mia and Jesse are doing the Titanic scene, and Kyle's like throwing something at them. Then we see a huge like float in the pool at the summer house. It was supposed to be like an inflatable DJ booth. I don't know, but KG's like, oh, I'm gonna jump on, and then like he jumps on and Kyle falls off into the water. We see Amanda in a huge inflatable suit walking down the stairs, and she's like, oh, I'm a snowball, and she has like white lipstick on her. It's like really creepy.
Might have been like a Oompa Loompa or something. I don't know. It was...
Yeah. She says she's a snowball, so it's probably for the winter party. Then we see Ben's girlfriend comes, and he has a girlfriend. And my biggest question is this the same girl that he was just talking to Ciara about last episode?
Right.
We'll find out. And we see West and Jesse talking about how Ben's like, I think this girl might be the one. Then we see Lindsay telling KJ that Bailey said Dara went into Ben's room for like an hour. So I'm assuming this is how like some drama gets started, where I guess the first time that Dara came, when she came to the party and she was kind of flirting with Ben and flirting with KJ, when she like hung out in Ben's room for a little bit, they're trying to make it seem like Dara hooked up with Ben.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that before, like when I was watching that episode, because I actually rewatched a little bit of it with you, so I'd already seen it. And in retrospect, knowing that she ended up with KJ, because when I watched it live the first time, I was thinking that she was kind of being flirtatious with Ben. I mean, obviously, like they didn't hook up or anything, but looking back on it, it was just like, oh, like she's unpacking the suitcase, whatever, and just kind of chatting, getting to know him better. But like, it wasn't necessarily even that flirtatious, I don't think. So it seemed very innocent, and I think she was interested in KJ the whole time. So
yeah, they show like a confrontation with Levi and Bailey, and Dara's like, we didn't hook up, and they're like, don't lie. I think it's gonna be a whole nothing burger at the end of the day.
yeah,
I really don't think they hooked up.
maybe just more of an interesting clip of that like 3-second argument than it is an actual
I'm
thing.
sure there'll be like I think it'll be quickly resolved, but maybe a little bit of drama.
I like that Dara's like, roll the tape back.
Yeah.
She's like, I got receipts. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it jumps in a little bit to the Ciara and West, will they or won't they? And like if someone's asking West, is the door still open with Ciara? I think. But then we see Ciara and West hugging, and like he's kissing her cheek. And then West is like, it's hard to ignore the sexual tension, but the last thing I want is her heart broken. And then we don't see what's going on, but someone says, whoa, did she see that? And then we see Ciara upset. And then we see West saying, I really effed up. I don't want to keep living like this. And Ciara's like, I don't want to keep living like this. And she's emotional. I'm curious if like all of these things are actually related, or if they're just like clipping things and editing it together. We'll see. But probably the best part from the trailer, then we have a chat with all the girls, but they're all dressed up in their like costumes for the elderly people party.
Right.
And they're having a serious conversation with Amanda about her and Kyle's relationship. But their costumes look amazing. Yeah. And they're like, Mia's like, this doesn't need to be your forever. Lindsay's like, let him see what it's like without you. And Ciara's like, it would be more productive for you guys to separate. Amanda's just like, I don't know what to say. And then it cuts to a scene with Carl and Carl. Carl's saying, you're throwing your relationship away, and for what? And then we get that quote of Amanda saying to Ciara, I just want you to know that Ben wanted to fuck me in Italy. So I'm interested to kind of see the context of that. And then we see Kyle going nuts and like having a tantrum and saying, I forgot Carl's more fragile than a effing China doll. I don't know. Looks like a lot of interesting stuff more to come this season.
Yeah, for sure.
I really want to know how Ciara gets like these amazing costumes with like these prosthetics and stuff. Yeah. Does she have like a hookup with like a costume designer or somebody?
Yeah, it was intense. That costume looks amazing. I don't know. All the costumes look hilarious, but to take that extra step and do like the makeup and everything to like get the wrinkles and all that, that's over the top. Yeah,
it's like she has like it's like a Mrs. Doubtfire like level type of like prosthetic and stuff over her face, and
I'm assuming it's hot out too, so it's commitment.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of it. So, did you have any red flags this episode?
Not really. I thought everybody was pretty well behaved. There's Kyle and Amanda kind of like bickering and stuff like that. The Lindsay and Carl relationship, I think, is kind of interesting to me for not caring about somebody. There's a lot of digs and stuff. I'm not suggesting that she actually cares about him romantically or anything like that. I think she just like, it's just like a big eye roll anytime she sees him. Like she just like regrets that phase of her life.
Yeah. My red flag, and I don't I don't know if this counts really because it didn't actually happen in this episode, but my red flag was that when Ciara and West dated previously and then broke up, the fact that he didn't realize he shouldn't be talking about their relationship to the press. It's like, come on, dude. Duh.
Yeah. Remind me
Uh,
what the comment was again. It was like, she's just not my person or something like that. Or was it more?
there was him talking about how he didn't like her anymore. Or, yeah, they weren't, maybe he liked her, but they weren't meant to be together or something. I don't know. It wasn't just like, I don't think it was just like one interview. I think it was multiple.
Oh,
So, yeah. Who were your MVPs? Or who was your MVP, I guess?
yeah, I had a couple to choose from. I don't think anybody stood out as like a clear winner in this one, but I ended up going with Ciara. Mainly just like I thought she opened up a lot. That was a good talk that she had at the dinner. Some other funny moments and stuff, and I thought that was cool that she showed up for Mia's boyfriend's restaurant opening and stuff like that. So she's being a good friend. But yeah, it wasn't like anything major happened this episode where it was like, oh, this person did something like outrageous or anything. So
I picked Ciara. Honorable mentions to KJ and Mia as well for being so vulnerable and opening up about their experiences being Black on reality TV and Ciara dating and all the pressures and everything they face. So yeah, I picked Ciara, but kind of wanted to pick Ciara, KJ, and Mia all.
No rules. You can do whatever you want.
If I'm allowed to pick more than one. Yeah. And what was your rating this week?
I went 3.75. It wasn't a bad episode. I don't know. It was a weird episode to me because it felt like not a lot happened, but at the same time, there was like 2 or 3 things that happened that were kind of like bigger. Like the truth or dare game was hilarious. Just like everybody making out with each other, skinny dipping, and all that stuff. So that was like an entertaining, like 5 minutes to start the show. It was like the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes were really good. And then like everything else kind of felt like a little bit boring. I don't know, just kind of filler stuff. It wasn't a bad episode. It just nothing significant happened in like the meat of the episode, I felt like. But
yeah, I felt similarly. I'm giving it 3.5 sandwiches, but 5 sandwiches for KJ, Mia, and Ciara's conversation at the end.
Yeah.
So they get like their own rating.
Right.
But otherwise, yeah, I felt like not that much happened this episode. I really it was like such a strong start with the spin the bottle, and then with the dinner conversation at the end, a really strong finish. But the middle, like the Kyle and Amanda conversation was interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't groundbreaking or anything.
It wasn't no, it wasn't groundbreaking. And yeah, I didn't feel like that much else happened. It did feel kind of like it was just a little bit of like a setup episode for next week.
I will say, like I wanted to give a separate rating for the mid-season
trailer.
I mean, it was just like clip after clip, and they can do that when they take like 4 or 5 episodes into like a 10-second trailer or whatever. But that was pretty good.
Totally. Well, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how much of that stuff that we saw in the trailer is going to be in the next episode, but I'm hoping that the next episode is going to come on strong.
Yeah, I did think this episode we would see Kyle yelling, because last episode they like had in the scenes him freaking out. So I guess that's still to come. We'll see. But
I could see it being that same night though, because like there's little things, comments from Amanda leading up to that night. So I could see them if they keep on partying later on that night. I could see him blowing up.
True. And Kyle did say when he got there, I'm going to try to pace myself and exercise moderation, something I'm really good at. Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we'll be back next week. Talk about episode 8. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and leave us a rating and review.
And if you have questions you want answered this season,
send them our way, because chances are Pat's wondering the same thing.